Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're your hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every weekday, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can find all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues affecting you and your neighbors.
Get connected, Fitchburg. We're launching Fitchburg Connect, the city's new monthly e-newsletter that keeps you informed about all the events, services, and updates that matter to you. Get it in your inbox once a month. Sign up today to get Fitchburg Connect.
Do I wait to see my smiling face? All right, it's 5:30. I will call the meeting this May 4th, 2026 Board of Public Works meeting. Looks like we've got a full crew present here. Don Gutkowski, Alder Herbst, Alder Jetzer is chair, and we've got Dave Wilborn and Kim Lobdell. So moving on to public appearances for non-agenda items. I don't believe we have anybody in chambers, nobody online, no sheets of paper in front of me, so we will go ahead and move on to approval of the minutes. I need a motion to approve the April 20th meeting minutes.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Daves. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of the approval of the April 20th, 2026 meeting minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It is unanimous. And moving on, we have a presentation from the Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District. Tim, do you want to give Eric an introduction here?
Yes, we have Eric Dundee, the Executive Director for the Madison Metropolitan Sewage District, here to kind of give a presentation on an update with the district.
Take it away, Eric.
Thank you. As I was introduced, Eric Dundee, Executive Director for the Sewer District. Tonight, just wanted to come and give you guys the things we're working on and try to give a little bit more background. I've been in this position now about 15 months as Executive Director. Before I was the Director of Operations and Maintenance. And one of the things I learned as I met with community members and on some of our projects is just the general understanding of who we are. So I'm going to go through some of that, and then we'll go through some of the specific items that will impact the city of Fitchburg and some of the topics we want you to consider as we go forward. So first off, we were established in 1930. We have 24 customer communities and 440,000 people we serve. So we have about 38 million gallons of water that comes to the treatment plant a day. So if you can visualize Camp Randall Stadium, we will fill up that lower bowl every day with water, treat it, and move it on. Rain events, big things like that, things change, but that's our average flow. And how this works for the public works, it's a little easier to explain, but basically from your house or business, it goes through a lateral into the sewer mains. In the Madison area, it usually goes to the municipality's sewer. So in this case, to Fitchburg-owned sewer, and then it goes to the bigger sewers, what we call the interceptors, that the Metropolitan Sewage District takes from there to lift stations and then gets pumped to the treatment plant. We are unique here in the Madison area, Dane County, that 100% of the flow is pumped to the treatment plant and 100% is pumped away. Usually you have some sort of gravity working for you in that way. Unfortunately, with our setup, we do not have that. But one thing to note is that what we usually get is about 99% water, and the 1% is what we're always trying to work on. So everything that gets put down the toilet, the sink drains, the showers, underground parking, things like that, anything in what we would call the plumbing units of buildings, that's what comes to us. in commercial and industrial applications. Obviously, there's more things like wash water and things like that, but we like to explain to people we're aiming for that 1%. And then we return all that water to Badfish Creek, which is then another use, goes down the system into the Rock River, down eventually into the Mississippi River, where larger communities actually use this water for drinking water, and then clean that as into drinking water, put it into wastewater, and the cycle continues all the way down the Mississippi River. And one thing that I did as I took over last year was I really wanted to have the district concentrate on our operational excellence. So for us, we have a unique situation where we're serving 24 customer communities. All those communities have a little bit different way of thinking about sustainability, financial responsibility, other things like that. So for me, the concentration is how well we can do our business to keep our rates lower, which would avoid then, the municipalities raising their rates. We have, and you'll see here soon, I'm kind of setting you up a little bit, some very intensive, expensive projects coming up. But the whole point is if we can have infrastructure renewal and operational efficiency, we can help maintain those rates. And with that, one of our major projects here, and we did put a lot of text on these slides. This is meant for you guys to use in the future if you'd like. I won't go through all the words on this slide, but basically the Madison area is growing so fast that we need to update our treatment process. We use biological treatment, which is bugs, to clean that water. And we need to actually update all those tanks and get all that equipment renewed. Right now, this project is on course for bidding out in June, and we're estimating this project's about $50 million. So when you see numbers like this, they're large, but we get to spread that over, 440,000 residents, and that is the whole point. The DNR and others believe regionalization, which we are, is more cost effective. We also have 2 projects coming up here. We have our heat and power project. This is a project where wastewater treatment plant is a unique situation. We digest or try to break down with heat the bugs and the things that we take out of the water. Well, that creates biogas. So that biogas is a methane that we can use for energy. In the picture on the left, you would see one of our operators looking at one of our engines. Those engines and blowers are from, I'm not going to say the World War II area, but just after. And it's time to renew those. But we have a unique situation now with the energy market that we can decide to either reuse that energy on site or we can inject it into the pipeline. If you drive past our treatment plant anytime now, you'll see that we flare. We are burning gas right now because our system doesn't use as much gas as we produce. We've been able to be more efficient. So right now, I would just say this bluntly, we waste energy because we have nowhere to put it and use it. And that's especially true in the summer months when you don't need as much heat. So for us, right now, our evaluation is, what can we do? Can we work with a regional partner? Can we be like Dane County Landfill, where they put the gas into the pipeline so you're never wasting it? That's what we're looking at right now. Pretty significant project for us, and one that really could change the community, because if we use a local partner for utility power, one, we're helping reduce our cost in rates, but we can also provide a utility company gas locally without going through all the other steps. Might help the utility rates there too. So one of the things I want to talk about is the local projects. And for Fitchburg, here's a very large local project. I'll get back into this map in a second, but basically on the far right and the far left, we have 2 phases of a very large Nine Springs Valley interceptor project, basically going from the treatment plant all the way out to Verona, and of course bisects Fitchburg all the way through. So we are just starting that project. When we get into it, if you can see the purple and the red, That's 2035 and 2040. That's how far we're looking ahead on these projects. But right now we're concentrating on phase 1 and phase 2, which we have here. Phase 1 is nearest to the treatment plant. Basically, we have to start building these pipes bigger from our pump stations and working our way out. So that's what this project is. And then phase 2 would not be phase 2, except for that we had a pipe break a few years ago and then found out the condition of this pipe is so bad that we had to address it early. So this is out by Highway 151 Fitch-Rona Road. So working on those two projects currently, and the goal is that those begin construction actually this year, if possible, on phase 2, and then phase 1 would be after that. So here's that map again, just showing where those phases are. So basically out by Verona 151 area, which is called phase 2, but we'll be doing that earlier. And then phase 1 will happen in 2029 by Highway 14. Yeah.
And where you're showing that just south of the pump station, what was going on there? You know, there were pipes out of the ground, you know, that last couple of years where you were just replacing that bad main. Is that what was going on
On
there?
151?
Yeah.
Yes. So we had an interceptor pipe collapse, and that pipe, if you could think of the flow that was going through there, think of all of Fond du Lac going through one pipe. So the west side of Madison, Verona, and some of Fitchburg flowed through that. So for us to actually fix that pipe, we had to build bypass pumping on top of the ground in the winter, and then try to keep those pumps and pipes from freezing, and it took a while.
So that's just not, there's more in there than just the Verona sewage coming in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's regional still from there. So every one of our pump stations, you know, are usually a regional system, including the ones even in Monona, because if you think of Monona, everything from Cottage Grove all the way up to Windsor to Forest goes into those.
Where are you crossing Verona Road or 151 to tie into that?
So that goes to what we call Pump Station 17, which is that's in Verona, and that pipe's already there. So that pipe was completed. I'm going to be careful not to give years, but is it 3 years ago, 4 years ago? You can tell me I'm wrong later.
So Verona, that pump station in Verona is picking up some of the Madison area too?
The interceptors that are going through there.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. And it's detailed and most of the time hard to explain. So one thing I do want to bring up for the Public Works and any resident in Fitchburg who's interested, if they want to get updates, please use this website. You can sign up for the updates, and those project updates will come to you as the projects continue. And what we just talked about before is conditions of our pipes. We had a pipe collapse. We have now had a situation where our force mains, so our pressurized pipes, once again, 100% of the flow is pumped to the treatment plant, which means that's all done in force mains. We've had 5 force main breaks in the last 5 years. Basically, in the history before that, if you see, we only had like 1 in 10 years before that. We are knowing now that with the Clean Water Fund loan and the Clean Water Fund or the Clean Water Act, there was a lot of pipes and equipment put in basically for free, and all that infrastructure is coming due now. So we are trying to update these pipes and pump stations as we can. The problem for me, or the troubling thing for me, is the challenge between fixing the pipes that are in bad condition and also trying to make sure that we have the right capacity. So the amount of population that's coming in, I'm really trying to avoid us needing to put in pipes just for capacity, because we have so many that have condition issues that we want to be able to do both at the same time. So this is part of that operational excellence and efficiency. Let's not spend money on just extra pipes knowing we're going to have to put another one in later.
Eric, you had a slide earlier. You showed that you were going to replace some of the 48-inch pipes with 54 and 60-inch pipes.
Yep.
I mean, 60-inch pipes gets you an extra 50+% capacity, but upgrading to 54 is only like 25%.
Yeah, this is where, I'm not sure what slide that is, but
Yeah, you're looking at it now.
yeah, so most of this is based on what population is served or if that area is growing. So in some of the cases further on phase 2, which is actually close to the treatment plant, where Fitchburg and City of Madison tie in, that's where it goes 60-inch and up. But where there's a large population area of Fitchburg and Madison that goes in intermediate in the middle of this pipe, so then you can downsize to 54 upstream of that.
Okay.
So,
And you don't, there's really no opportunity for redundancy here. So if one of these, if a section of interceptor fails, you got to move quickly.
correct. We do, if we do not have space in the existing, sometimes it is redundancy where we will build a new pipe and then switch all the flow into the new pipe and then line or do some sort of trenchless technology to save the existing one. In some of these cases, though, for instance, in the Nine Springs Valley area, if I go to the map, whether it's a wetland or a road corridor or something like that, we have no choice but to do what we talked about before, build a bypass system above ground, pump the water around it, replace the pipe and put it back in the same spot. So every one of these projects have unique constraints that we fight through all the time.
Eric, if you could
Yeah.
go through and you go back to the map and go that liability for a community. You mentioned the Verona collapse and stuff. Did they pay for it? Is it everyone that's serviced on this? Is it prorated based on your percent usage? If you just go over it when you're going through the phases, Fitchburg.
So I would explain this through our mechanisms of service charges. So when we build an interceptor sewer, we're building it with connection charges. So basically we are planning out, if I could use another example, maybe you're used to is like a traffic study, and you have neighborhoods who have to pay in for road improvements, things like that. We have the same thing for sewers. When they come to connect, they have to pay in. Now that's a one-time fee, and then the sewer district takes over maintenance after that. So for us, it becomes a community-wide issue when like this kind of pipe collapse happens. So basically, you would help pay for Monona's work or Verona's work, and they would help pay for your work. And it's all based off of our service charges through our 24 customer communities. So, and then there's a separate, not to get too detailed, but then there's a separate charge for the treatment plant. So the treatment plant bases its calculations off of flow and parameters, pollutant parameters that come in. So then there's something different for that too. So there's the pipes out in the system, and then there's the treatment plant. And actually, that's a great segue. Thank you for that. So one of the things that we do is we keep track of industrial pretreatment. So basically those community partners and businesses that are in your service area, and then we test those separately to know what we call their flows and loadings are. If they are putting something into the system that is very energy intensive or something hard for us to treat, those charges are more. And those are directly to those companies, not to the community residents. And then here's a couple things that we have. Our new wastewater permit is coming. It comes due every 5 years and it gets redone. One thing Fitchburg has done a great job of has been reducing road salt and helping the community with chloride, so the chlorides from the salts. Well, we just got our new permit and the limit is going down. So we're going to be interacting with all of our customer communities about, what else we can do to limit salt usage. We know we live in an area where a lot of water softeners. Well, some of those water softeners are very efficient, and some of those are not. We also know there is something about road salt that keeps us having a spike of our chlorides when rain or something happens and we wash off all the salt on the roads from the winter. That usually spikes up our limit, and then now in our new permit that can actually create a permit violation for us.
Storm sewer and sanitary sewer are
You sure do.
and they are, we check for infiltration and things like that, which I think we have minimized. Our other communities not as good.
I would tell you that everybody would use the word good subjectively. So, your good is different than XYZ's good. I'm not going to call out names. But yeah, that happens. It also happens with situations like educating people on underground parking for large apartment buildings. So any water that goes into that basement, any grease, oil, salt, because of building code, that goes directly to the sanitary sewer.
Okay.
So one of the things I personally am interested in having conversations with communities about is we've done a really good job with road salt. We've been pretty good stewards of the environment, keeping the balance between roads clean and safe and using salt. Now we're using brine, things like that. But one of the things that we have not done in the past, and the sewer district is able to use its sewer use ordinance for this, so basically an enforcement policy, is commercial buildings. When you go to whatever you go to, I'll be careful of using names, but you might run an errand and you park your car and you're on a bed of salt. Well, that salt's going to run off somewhere. And it's either going to run off into the storm sewer, into the rivers and creeks where you don't want it, or it's going to run into the road and then the storm sewer, or it's going to run into these inlets that go to the sanitary sewer. So I think for us as an area, that's another place we can look. We can also help with incentives for people to take care of what we call the clunkers, which is the water softeners that may take 40 pounds of salt every week. They're out there. So we have some work to do as a whole, but every little bit helps us. So,
Can you treat those developments like your industrial?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We actually are working with one of our pilot projects right now is actually with the city of Middleton. We're actually working with Dave Jones Plumbing, and I'm giving them a shout out here. They're helping us put in something called blending valves into the water softeners so that they can be adjusted depending on how somebody wants their water to be, more hard or more soft type of thing. But for us, it is really about most new water softeners are efficient. It's the ones that are older that just keep going, and people, they're filling them. It's kind of like your gas tank, right? Well, you could run out of gas and be done. You could run out of salt in your water softener and do nothing else. But for those who continue to use the salt, that is more salt getting into the waste stream that comes to the treatment plant. So,
Eric?
yeah.
So I looked at your website. You've got your commercial and industrial water softener rebate page, and it says area water softeners contribute to over 100,000 pounds of salt to the local waterways. 100,000 pounds coming from commercial and industrial, and over what period of time, or is that like all 440,000? I was confused by. I guess what I'm interested in is what is the relative contribution of water softeners and road salt to the problem of
That's a great question I'll have to get back to you on. But the 100,000 pounds that we use is what is the salt that comes through the concentration of our wastewater when we know there's not road salt coming. When we get into the middle of summer, road salt is not a thing anymore for us. So we have a baseline of salt that comes to the treatment plant, whether it's based off of chemicals people use that have chlorides in them or our water softeners. And, you know, if you try to make assumption on top of assumption, you can come up with a number of about 100,000 pounds of salt. And that's based on our concentrations. And
That's 100,000 pounds per day, per week, per month?
Oh, great question. I can get back to you on that
Okay.
one. So it's actually, I'm reading it right here now that I slow down. So over 100,000 pounds per day of salt from water softeners. Actually, have it in my notes. So
50 tons per day.
yeah.
So is that, you say commercial and industrial, that is not like individual homeowners' water softeners?
I think it's everybody.
Everybody.
Okay, that
It's
includes, that.
everybody.
That's under the commercial or whatever?
It was just, that was the page that was referenced. But
Yep.
it evidently refers to the entire system.
Okay, should I move on?
My understanding on the salt is that it's those peaks that are causing the problems, right? And that's where you get into the road salt, like when you have the heavy rains, and those peaks are what are getting close to or exceeding the limits that you have.
Yeah, that is correct. So we are based on a weekly limit, and that limit at our baseline in the summer, and I'll just give these numbers because I know them. You know, we're in the 370 to 380 milligrams per liter is the concentration. Our permit level is planned to go down to 408. Normally you'd be like, okay, great, you're under it. But in the winter, when the road salt washes off, we can get into the 420s, 420, so we can go significantly over. Not every year it's like that, but it's heavily weather dependent. Get a bunch of ice storms, and what is the way to combat that ice storm? Or get a bunch of, you know, just nice fluffy snows, no big deal, that melt off. But that ice storm or something that is a lot of snow led by really cold weathers, it has the tendency to have more salt and things used to treat the roads. But thank you for that comment and question. Okay, I'll try to finish up here. I know you guys have other items on your list today. The other thing we always want to make sure we mention, we never go anywhere without talking about this. Flushable wipes are not flushable wipes. Toilets aren't trash cans. We have a behavioral item that we are working on every day. Basically, if you can put it down the toilet or down the drain, people think it's okay to do that. That's that 1% for us. All those things are what we spend lots and lots of money with lots of zeros on to take out. We do have things you can download from our website and educational materials and videos. We are actually working on this. I was in Washington, D.C. 3 weeks ago. We are working on this on a federal level. There are wastewater treatment plants in the United States that are actually suing these companies that are calling them flushable wipes. It creates many problems and many headaches. It is not a contamination thing. It is a maintenance thing. It sticks in the pipes. It sticks in the pumps. And most of the flushable wipes specifically, they are a fibrous material. So you can tear them apart, but then they come right back together and make a bigger mess. So. And then we also have, speaking of I&I, we have our DRIPS program. This has actually been a very big deal for us. Not that it is a big deal that we are attacking I&I, because we are, but customer communities are doing that too. But we're trying to be the regional partner here. We know we can be helpful with our communications, so we developed this packet and toolkit basically to allow customer communities to use in your utility mailings or put on your websites, things like that. This actually won awards on a national level for how this education program works. So, and then the last thing I want to do is make sure to invite you guys out. You know, please feel free to think about taking a tour at the treatment plant. If you get lucky, it'll be me giving the tour. But otherwise, we have a full tour program that you can come and check us out. So with that, I just want to say thank you.
Eric, question on, you kind of alluded to it with your phasing and asset management of a pipe. What's your service life on the treatment facility itself? I mean, it's got to be pretty old.
Yeah, so the treatment plant right now, so we are usually trying to phase all of our projects to the 20-year lifespan. Most of that is because the harsh environment of the equipment or that it goes through, you know, some of the stuff lasts 2 years. But otherwise for us, it's about population projections and flows and loadings for us in that 20-year lifespan. That's part of the DNR's facility planning phase. So for wastewater plants and their planning, they're trying to go in that 20-year cycle. For us, I would just tell you that that 20-year cycle is expedited. With the growth of the Madison area, you know, we have just went through CARP-C, Capital Area Regional Planning, put out new population projections with UW-Madison. And we serve 440,000 people now, and we're looking at numbers in 20 years. It might be 580,000. It might be 600,000. We are trying to keep up and trying to avoid a situation where we tell communities, you can't grow anymore, our pipes can't take it, or the treatment plant. So.
And one final question about a marketable product. Milwaukee Sewage sells malagranite. Is that a marketable product that you could explore?
Yeah, so we are going through what we call that biosolids in our industry, and Milwaukee does, they have basically expanded a business model for mill organite. We currently take our biosolids and give it away for free to farmers as free fertilizer. That's actually going on right now. You know, once the snow comes off the ground and melt, we do that. We are actually doing a biosolids project review right now, a facility plan, to try to understand what products we should be looking at exploring. I would tell you that from my seat as executive director, I am trying to balance the risk of PFAS and any kind of regulations about what you can do with biosolids or mill organite or whatever product you want to have, and what the restrictions would be with PFAS and those type of forever chemicals. We are paying attention closely. We're going through that review right now because right now our biosolids process and our program that we do now, we do have the initial numbers back. The do nothing, which is just upgrade the existing equipment we have, it's $55 million. I don't want to invest a do nothing for $55 million. So there is a lot more to come on that. In the next 6 months, we're actually going to finish that facility plan review to figure out what our alternatives are. And frankly, some of the alternatives and risks, there is no good solution to. So we're going to have to be forced into a choice at some point. That's not a good answer, but that's the answer.
Eric, is I think Verona the only city in MMSD that is in the Yahara River watershed? And, you know, they used to have the effluent return to Badger Mill Creek. And apparently that was stopped. You know, they said phosphorus going. Well, if Verona would have had a treatment plant, it would have still been going there. So I just, you know, I don't like moving. I thought it made sense to take the water and sewage that came out of that watershed, sending it back, versus now it's just going down Badger Mill Creek. I thought that was a poor compromise. I don't know if the DNR forced you in that. I think that was short-sighted. But am I missing anything there?
I can tell you that for the sewage district, we have to meet our permit compliance. And when our permit compliance tells us that treatment is not cost effective to a different model, then we are forced into a decision like that. If we would have more options when it comes to doing that treatment or meeting that limit, we could have done something else.
You were treating it and sending it back, though. It was the same, it's the same effluent going down Badger Mill Creek. I don't want to beat that dead horse.
No.
One other question for you then. You were talking about the biogas, and I've been involved. You mentioned, you thought, well, we'll sell the biogas. Is that being driven by federal grants? Because I think it would make more sense just to have a larger generator and sell the electricity back to MG&E rather than be dealing with, the biogas and metering station and all that. So, what your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are that you're an expert.
You're what I do for a living.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, your thoughts are exactly what we are investigating. So we have a situation where we know we have a known commodity. We have a certain amount that we are going to produce all the time, and with the growing community, we're going to produce more. If we do new generators, we've already gotten this far in that process. If we do new generators, we have to build new buildings because the new generators don't fit in the old buildings, and we all know how that goes. The other part is that the incentive money, I call it, that those grant fundings for us may not be the only model. We know our local utility, I'll not talk about their name here, but the local utility also has, green energy incentives and things like that. So I don't want to take options off the table at this point. Obviously, if government funding and incentives changes, the whole calculation changes for us. But you're right in line with the thought of that's our two options.
So you can upgrade your generators in the existing building, but you wouldn't have enough capacity to be burning all the biogas off is kind of what I mean.
Yeah, we would actually have to put smaller engine generators in, which we either want to put in generators big enough to handle the whole gas load or go to something else.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
No other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Eric. This was quite an eye-opener. And I guess we can move on to our next agenda item, which is the report from the Director of Public Works, Mr. Tim Volker, PE. Take it away.
Thank you. Good evening. I'll start with a couple administrative updates. Next week, Thursday, May 14th, 2026 at 6 p.m. is our public information meeting for the 2026 Belmar and Tower Hill Utility Improvement Project. Next up is our prescribed burns. Field and Stream completed the Harlan Hills East Pond, and that was the last prescribed burn this spring. So all we have left to do this year is the fall burn, which Heartland is our other contractor. They'll be burning the terrace infiltration areas within Terra Vesta come fall. And then lastly, just our spring hydrant flushing is still going on. We anticipate that continuing through the end of next week, May 15th, 2026. And then next up is our 2026 street resurfacing project. Payne and Dolan is still anticipated to start late May, early June for that project. We'll have a pre-construction meeting prior to them starting work. And then our 2026 sidewalk replacement project, we opened bids last week, Thursday, April 30th, 2026, and we received no bids. So we're looking to re-advertise that this week, Friday, May 8th, and then open bids 2 weeks later on May 22nd. And then our Wayland Road paved shoulder project, we're anticipating advertising that on May 15th and then opening bids for that project on Friday, May 29th. And then our 2026 Belmar and Tower Hill utility improvements, that's the project we're having the public information meeting next week on. The construction contract for Speedway Sand and Gravel was approved at last week's council meeting. And then the contractor is still anticipated to start mid-May for that project. And then our Cyene Interceptor project, the contractor started installing pipe today. And then lastly, our Water Tower D, our contractor is anticipated to start the painting of that water tower this week. But they will be utilizing a large containment shroud for the painting, so we won't be seeing much activity with that. So the shroud will kind of help protect the debris and paint chips from the nearby properties. With that, does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. Did you get any feedback as to why you didn't get any bids on the sidewalk project?
I spoke to Zach. He hasn't reached out to the contractors yet, but he is anticipating calling them up just to see if it was due to workload or
Because if you're going to advertise it again next week, did you say?
Yes.
What are the chances that your workload is going to change that much
Right.
in that amount of time? The other issue with that is if everybody knows you didn't get any bids the first time, even if you get one, your prices may come in quite a bit higher because they understand or think that they're going to have less competition. And so what if you don't get any bids again? What's plan B for the city? Not to do a project this year, or?
Yeah, we would just anticipate not doing a project most likely and then just lumping it in next year with a larger project. So, and obviously if we do get one bid and we think prices are high, we wouldn't recommend an award for that. So, and we have updated pricing on concrete that we could, obviously analyze and determine whether or not it is cost effective.
Do we need to put that out for bids earlier in the year or something?
For the sidewalk, it all depends. Like I mentioned, Zach's going to be reaching out to them this week, so we'll kind of get feedback and go from there.
Because there's really probably not much you can do to change the specs or the plan or whatever to make it more desirable for them to bid.
Yeah, we did extend the deadline to the end of October. I think to give them a little more time. I mean, in previous years, we actually put it out later. So I don't necessarily know it was a timing thing, but we'll see.
This wasn't a smaller project than in previous years or anything?
No, this had actually our typical size projects. I believe last year we did not have a sidewalk replacement project. We're still wrapping up the previous years. So this is actually two years worth.
Any other questions for Tim? Okay, we can move on to our action items. Agenda item 7A, looking for a motion to approve resolution R9726, amending the 2026 tax increment district TID number 10 and capital project fund budgets for bus rapid transit.
I recommend we go R9726.
Thank you, Don. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Kim. Okay. Tim, you want to walk us through? Well,
I'm going to defer to Ross.
do you want to walk us through?
Yeah, so I'm just going to go through basically this presentation quickly and then go through kind of the actual resolution that's in front of you guys, if that works. So I'll skip through kind of the full route overview and the construction schedule stuff pretty quickly. We'll get to construction cost, and then we can kind of skip through the station design overview as well. So this is for the full Fitchburg portion of Route B. the project timeline, you can see we're in the planning, environmental review, and design phase still, and the Fitchburg portion of this project is currently slated for 2028 for construction. So for the small starts grant status, the project, it was identified in the 2026 federal appropriations bill for small starts grant funding. We're at 60% design, and full federal grant approval is anticipated this year or early next year. As far as the funding status, so in our 2025 CIP, Fitchburg added $1.5 million. That was based off of the expectations of federal funding at that time and the project cost estimates at that time. So I'll kind of get into how those numbers have changed, both on the cost estimate side and the federal funding side. So, we originally estimated 80% of this project would be federally funded. Now it looks like federal funding will be closer to 70%. And then as far as the cost estimates go, in 2025, we were working with pre-design east-west BRT projections. So those were from before they started building the east-west BRT. This new estimate is based on the actual east-west BRT construction costs. So they've obviously built all of east-west BRT. They know how much it cost, and we're using that to project our north-south costs now. Basically, based on those two items, Fitchburg needs $4.2 million of additional local funding. So that's the main portion of the resolution before you guys today. So I know we've been talking about center running or side running stations, and this is a question I've been getting a lot, but we've switched from the center running stations on Fish Hatchery Road to side running stations. So that has brought our project total, the Fitchburg project total, from 25 million down to 17 million. And that $4.2 million budget amendment plus the $1.5 million already in the CIP is our 30% local share of that $17 million, if you're following all that math.
Ross, can you explain how putting a station on both sides of the road is cheaper than putting one in the center?
Yes, so the side running stations, there are two on each side of the road, as you said. They're smaller than the center stations because the center stations still have to be able to accept a bus on each side and the amount of people that are using two buses. But the side running stations only have to be big enough for one bus at a time and the amount of people using one bus. So the stations themselves are smaller, even though there are two of them, and they basically allow us to reconstruct less of Fish Hatchery Road. So with the stations in the center, we were going to have to redo more pavement, more curb, basically move crosswalks around more on a road that we just reconstructed 6 years ago at this point. So moving the stations to the side, there's just more room on the side of Fish Hatchery Road to put a station is the kind of the summary of it. This slide is just kind of a summary for your reference later on. I'm not going to go through all these numbers, but it's got the project total, so that's both Madison and Fitchburg in the project total column, and then the Fitchburg only cost. So basically that 1.5 plus the 4.2 will add up to this $5.1 million plus contingency. And then if you've got any specific questions about the station design, we can go through that. But
Ross, no particular question on station design, but in the costs, are we doing signal priority?
We are, yes. So we're adding a signal at.
You might have to say what signal priority is.
Sure. So a big part of BRT is getting buses along the route faster. That's what makes it the BR, the rapid part of BRT. So signal priority is basically giving buses the first go at a traffic signal. So in Madison, you might see this with some of the left turns, or if they have to make a right turn, they'll get priority to kind of jump queues back into traffic. Fish Hatchery doesn't have quite as much of that, but we are still doing signal priority at the appropriate intersections. So yeah, with that, we can kind of get back to the actual resolution, which is
One more question.
Yep.
So in the plans that were listed, we saw detail on all the stations. But I didn't see, I thought there was supposed to be, we were going to signalize High Ridge Trail. Is that correct?
That's correct. So at the current point of the plans, we don't have a signal design for High Ridge Trail. That will come at the next plan revision stage, which is expected in July, I believe.
Okay, but that is included in the cost estimate.
Correct. That's part of this project. Any other questions on design or that presentation before we get to kind of the budget amendment resolution?
Yeah, I guess I did have just one more comment. I was looking at the stops that are going to be removed. So it looks like Ochala Drive. So they'll have to walk, basically 1,000 feet either north or south to get to Greenway or Post Road. And then the Caddis stop at Fish Hatchery Road is removed, and then so that's 600 feet up to Cahill, Maine. And then Traceway as well was removed. And that one is a little unfortunate because we've got the High Line right there, which is senior apartments. And so rather than, essentially walking down to the nearest intersection to catch a bus, they have to walk, a quarter mile or something to get to the High Ridge stop. Is that, any comments on that?
That is part of another part of the piece of making these buses faster and more reliable is them having to stop less often. It can be, I find, a little bit better to think about it as somewhere between a bus route and a, subway or train route where, like with the L in Chicago, you don't have stops every 3 blocks like we have with kind of our bus service now. So it's decreasing the amount of stops, but helping the speed and reliability of the service. And those stop locations and removals were approved with the locally preferred alternative over a year ago, I believe.
Okay.
Is this $5 million going to take care of things for a few years, or are we going to come back in a couple more years and you want millions more?
This is based on our best estimates at this time, which is the actual construction of the east-west BRT, which is these same stations, same design for the bus lanes, all of that. And we've even reduced the costs of these stations. Like some of the finishes are a little bit more durable to the elements, so there will be less maintenance costs, stuff like that. So we're not anticipating any other additional asks for funding.
And adjusted for inflation for the construction year?
Yes, these do account for inflation constructing in 2028.
Okay.
So that's all, a lot of that stuff is covered in the attached memo as well.
And then At the Trevorton Pike stop, in the packet, it said no utility work necessary. So we're going to be able to put in a 450 kilowatt charger with no additional utility work?
That note, let me just get to that page. That note is referring to the sanitary and water there.
Okay.
So basically, we are going to do electrical work for that charger. Yes, there will be an MG&E transformer and easements that will come before Board of Public Works when we have those more ironed out. But we don't have to move the water main or sanitary sewer there.
Okay. Are we tapping into existing lines, or do we need to have new lines laid for the charger?
I believe we will be able to put a transformer off of the existing line and run that to the charger.
Okay.
So it'll be more of a service than a new line.
Ross, I know you want to get into the TID. One question I'll have with that is, what do we need to do as a community to lock in that? Clearly, they changed the funding stream, 70-30 to a 60-40. Nothing. What do we have to do to lock in the 60-40 so that down the road someone doesn't change it to a 50-50?
So that's part of getting these plans to the 60% phase that we're at now and going through the environmental review processes that we're going through right now for this project. Is once we fulfill all of the federal government's asks for that funding, then we will get a signed agreement locking in that funding. So right now, there is not an agreement with the federal government to fund that 70% of the project, and that's what we're working towards.
To 70 or 60? It looks like they changed your funding stream.
Right. We're anticipating about 70%.
Oh, okay.
Map of the boundaries of the TID District 10.
Give me 1 second and I can do that. So this red section is TID 10.
Okay. These are the district we set up when we, to fund the Fish Hatchery Road project. Is what, okay.
Yep. So the percentages of the project that are covered in the TID and the half mile and that are not in the TID are covered in that attached memo.
Thank you.
Down at the bottom here. So 33% of the project is within the TID boundaries, 44% of it is within a half mile of the TID boundaries, and 23% of it is in a non-TID area and would be funded by borrowing.
So realistically, I mean, we all read the papers, we all know the trouble that the East-West is having with their bus equipment, and they're changing their headways to longer distances and that kind of stuff. But it's more of a maintenance and the bus issue problem, but that's been getting a lot of visibility or press or whatever lately, and the people who are using the east-west route, you know, have expressed their opinions on all of this. So I guess I'm just slightly concerned that with all of that information, people are going to think, why are we building a north-south if we can't even have the buses and equipment to handle the east-west with all the infrastructure that they already have? And just how do we respond to the public for those kind of questions?
Mm-hmm. So a lot of this funding will go towards making our north-south service more reliable and more on time, and we will need to use less buses on the north-south route once we build up all of this BRT infrastructure. Part of that is the charger on the south end. So right now, on the north-south route, there are no electric chargers for the all-electric buses that run that route all day. On east-west BRT, there's a charger on each end. So the bus gets to one end of the route, the driver takes their break, the bus charges for 15 or 20 minutes, and then tops up its battery basically, and goes the rest of the way to the other end of the route and does the same thing. Right now, on the B route, the bus has to run north and south until it gets low on battery and go back to the bus depot to charge, which basically takes up more bus time with that unused mileage going back and forth to the bus depot. So building the chargers on each end will help with the bus availability on both north-south and east-west, because we'll be taking up less buses for our current Route B service. And then not having to stop buses at so many stops and having the signal priority and better marked dedicated lanes will also help with reliability and not getting behind on the bus timings for this route.
I'm a hard no. Two reasons I'm not opposed to bus, but for the District 1 residents to be paying part of the borrowing, we get no benefit of this. And in fact, our bus service was reduced with the redesign for the BRT. So I think it's a double slap in the face. I'd prefer if that money came from an assessment to District 2 and District 3 rather than saddling my residents with additional taxes. That's my view. It's not going to matter, but know where I stand. I'm certainly not opposed to buses, but our District 1 service was degraded to redesign for the BRT.
So the amount that they'll have to pay, Dave, is that part of the 23%, which is going to be the borrowing citywide, and not contingent on any of the TID stuff?
Yeah, you're correct.
I'll just note that everybody pays for every road in the city, and most people don't drive on very many of the roads in the city. So I don't view this as any different.
I think that's apples to oranges, but we'll agree to disagree, Bill.
So I thought that the part of maybe most of the problem on the inefficiencies in the system that they have east-west wasn't all a charging thing. I thought it was like actual mechanical kinds of things that they're having a bunch of issue with. How are they going to solve that?
You're right that it's not all a charging thing, but it's a lot of issues adding up together right now. So you mentioned the mechanics. They are having issues with the all-electric buses that they're having to have the manufacturer come back out to Madison with dedicated technicians to solve some unforeseen issues with the electric buses. And there's also issues with the diesel and hybrid bus fleet, where a lot of the service timings are coming up all at one time because Metro bought so many buses in one large package. So then all of the 50,000 mile service and 100,000 mile service for all of the bus fleet hits at the same time. But they're working on ways to hire mechanics and technicians to alleviate those kind of choke points at the service depot, and then also stage their purchasing of new buses to replace the aging diesel fleet, which also has its share of mechanical issues because it's so old. Staging the purchases of those new buses that they'll need so they don't run into this issue again in 5 years or, whatever the service interval is.
I just feel like if they would get some of that worked out and get some more positive information out in the media, that would help just in general people's viewpoint on the whole thing. But I understand it's all a timing thing, and you got to, continue with your design and continue with getting your funding locked in and that kind of thing in order to be able to do it. It's just that the timing of it is, with the negativity that's out there right now, I think is not good timing, but you don't get to pick, I guess.
Yeah, part of the entire reasoning for the timing of this budget amendment is there is a risk workshop for the federal grant funding that is happening on May 19th through the 21st. And basically that allows the federal government to say, these are the risk factors we see with funding your project. And if Fitchburg's local portion of this funding is not amended into our current year budget, that will be the biggest risk factor that comes up in that risk workshop.
So by approving this resolution, are we committing the city of Fitchburg to this amount of borrowing? You say in this year's budget, we've already got all of our borrowing set for this year's budget, don't we? How do you go about do that? What are we committing the citizens of Fitchburg or the residents of Fitchburg to by passing this budget amendment?
Yes, this budget amendment does amend the 2026 budget. You
can't borrow more money right now in the middle of it, can you? Our tax rates and all that are all set.
So that is a better question for the financial department, than me.
But budget amendments are not uncommon.
But this is a large budget amendment.
Yeah. Well, last year we had, an unexpected $660,000 or whatever it was to get more gravel underneath the underneath Sighing Road. That's, that's half as much as this 1.3 million that we're going to need for borrowing here.
Ross, help me out on your risk workshop. And I apologize, it went from 80-20 to 70-30. Is that a risk if they say that might change again before we're done with everything? Or is that part of the risk factor workshop? Or
So the risk workshop is for the federal government to assess risks from their side of funding the project. One of the risks wouldn't be that the funding would go down, because that would be a benefit for the federal government, frankly. They'd be spending less money on the project. But I think that is a factor of the risk workshop. If there's too many risks, they will not elect to fund the project.
what other stuff do they look at, like ridership or?
Ridership. If there's like constructability concerns, one thing that comes up in like trainings I've watched is bus availability. So there's only 2 bus manufacturers in the United States, New Flyer and Gillig. And if a project isn't already on their books to manufacture all the needed buses, that's a huge risk. But Metro bought all of the buses for both North-South and East-West BRT with East-West BRT. So that's a big thing that we've already addressed. But it's stuff like that where the federal government is looking at things that might prevent you from starting bus service on the date that you have put out there.
Just aren't going to come back at the end of the year and say we need another couple million for this by any chance.
I'm not planning on it. But again, the Fitchburg portion of this project is planned to construct in 2028. So we're coming up on 90% plans for this. Our plans are pretty solid at this point. We're not anticipating changing anything that would need us to come back for another budget amendment.
Pretty sure the government's going to still put in 70% of it.
That depends on the feelings of the federal government. That number has changed from 80% to 50% and now is at 70%. So.
All right, if there are no further questions, I guess we can call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R9726 signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Opposed.
Motion passes 3-2.
Very well
Thank you,
prepared
guys.
and had very good information there, so appreciate it.
Yeah.
Very well organized.
And moving on to item 7B, I'm looking for a motion to approve Resolution R10526, approving a contract for AMI meter software upgrade.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Kim. Tim, you can walk us through this one.
The city entered into a contract with HD Supply Waterworks, now operating as Core and Main in 2012, to provide a Census FlexNet advanced metering infrastructure system and for annual hosting support of the system. So Logic, which is the meter data management system provided by Census as part of the AMI system back in 2012, will no longer be supported after June of 2026. It needs to be replaced. So Core and Main is offering Census Analytics, which with a one-time setup fee of $10,500 to replace Logic. The new contract with Core and Main includes the annual hosting and support fees for the AMI system for the next 10 years. Utility budget has funds available for this year's costs. So we're looking for council to approve the contract for the AMI meter software upgrade.
Questions? Dave, go ahead.
We don't have to change our meters, is that correct?
No, as part of this, we do not. As part of the CIP, we have the meters being changed starting in 2032, which is 20 years after the 2012 installation date.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Is 14 years an unusually short time for them to be sunsetting their software? Was this like a surprise for us?
No, we knew it was coming. So it's not nothing new software, just being updated. And actually the annuals, so Logic this year, or I think in 2025 was $28,881 for the annual fee. And then our first year with the Census Analytics will actually be less, so it'll be $27,576.
And then does it go up every year for the 10 years?
Yeah, it will go up for each of the 10 years. But like I mentioned, it's actually a little less than what we're paying for Logic right now.
That was going to be my next question is the annual fee more or less from what it is?
Kim,
Beat me to it.
Yeah, I think it's a good lifetime. It seems like that software becomes obsolete. That's ridiculous. So,
But it's expensive, and it does become obsolete so fast. But you say there is enough money in the budgets, the water and sewer budgets, to cover all of this?
Yes, correct.
Are there any exciting new features with this software? I mean, there's limited because we're looking at the same meters, but I don't know if there's any additional analysis or functionality that they can provide.
I'm sure there is, without having played around with it yet. I'm not quite sure exactly what features, but with any update, typically there's additional analytics we can look at and management of that data.
Is there a troubleshooting clause in here for when we put this new one in. There's every time you do a software update, something goes wrong. There's a bug or something in it, and so we're going to work with us until we get it figured out.
Yeah, obviously, we'd like to get this installed for our fall billing, and then we can work out the kinks. We expect, obviously, there'll be some kinks that there'll still be time that we could work through that.
Is that included in the setup fee of the whole thing, working through that, or does that come as an additional cost as we discover things? Or don't you know?
The troubleshooting, it's built into the price.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tim, we have some customers like myself where the bill comes out of my checking account, and some people still get a paper bill. Is that interface built into this? So you're not going to. I understand reading the meters, getting the bills out, and getting residents pay for the water is equally important.
Yeah, as far as the billing, I'm not sure if that's something. Are you saying if they can pay online or? No,
you have some sort of interface from this to generate the physical bills and the people that have automatic deduction. This system, we're not going to have to. There's not going to be a big learning curve trying to keep that up and running.
No.
Okay.
Tim, do you have comparables with surrounding communities? I assume a lot of people use this software in those meters, so you have something to compare to. Call Madison up and say, "What are you paying?" And
as far as Tracy, do you know if Madison's using census? They're not? Yeah.
So I'm not 100% sure what Madison is using today, but when we put in Logic, Madison went with MeterSense, and Logic is like a reversed or a reduced version of MeterSense. It is a MeterSense software, the one that we have. But so census, they don't use the census. The census is, I would say they're too big of a system for what we're looking to go to, and that would be the same with MeterSense was too big of a system for us, and that's why we use Logic.
What about other communities, Verona, Middleton, Sun Prairie, any of those? Do they use what we're using?
I don't know which communities around us what they use, but other communities are using, everybody that was on Logic, they're switching to the census analytics. It's a much, from what I can tell, because they did a demonstration with us, it's a much simpler program to use than what Logic is. There's a lot of programming in Logic when you use it, and I would say Logic probably can do more, but we didn't use it. And if we're not using it, there's no reason to have it. And it was a little bit more complicated.
so we just got a good feeling we're not getting gouged from them? Or
Well, we're paying less than what we're paying now.
I understand
So we're not getting gouged.
previous, but you
Unless we're
also
getting
have
gouged now.
you also have to renew every year. So is it going to go up by 8% every
Well,
year?
The contract here is for 10 years. You've got all the pricing. You can see the
Okay.
yearly pricing in there, which brings up another point. The 2026 analytic hosting fee looks like it's for a full year, but when do we plan on installing this? Shouldn't that be prorated to the portion of the year where we actually have the software?
Yeah, so we've talked about prorating it. The current hosting fee comes up in, I believe, August in that time frame, so it's probably going to be fairly close. But we did talk to them about prorating it, so that we're not double paying for Logic and paying for the census analytics.
Okay. I took a little bit of a dive into their privacy policy that was linked in the packet materials. And I'm not sure what they mean by customers, but they say that they may disclose personal information to Xylem affiliates and to social media platforms. It also says there's a section on there about how they retain personal information, then there's just like a placeholder that says further information on the concept here. So they don't actually say it in their privacy policy. So I guess, I don't know what does personal information mean? Does that mean the city of Fitchburg, information about the city of Fitchburg, or information about the residents of Fitchburg?
So in the census system, you do have addresses. You don't have your resident names or anything like that. But I don't know what detail. I mean, usually they're looking when they use stuff like that. It's usually as a whole, but I can definitely clarify with them. It's a good question.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All right, I will call a vote. All in favor of Resolution R-105-26, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It is unanimous. Moving on to item 7C. Tim, we're looking to postpone this one?
Correct.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to do that.
I'll move to postpone
a date
Resolution R-103-26
To a
I'll
date
second it.
uncertain.
to a date uncertain.
Second that motion.
So I had asked, because there was no SIA in the agenda packet, and Tim said, well, that's because we're still waiting for it, so.
Yeah, I saw it said it'll be added prior to the meeting today, and then I'm like, okay, I just went in and it's not there.
Okay, so all in favor of postponing Resolution R-103-26 to date uncertain, signify by saying aye. Aye. That is unanimous. Moving on to announcements, our next Board of Public Works meeting is Monday, May 18th at 5:30 p.m. Any other announcements from the crew here? Okay, I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I so move we adjourn.
Second, anyone?
I'll second.
All right, then all in favor of adjournment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 6:50.